industrial district.
Everyone's fast.
Another workshop. Tim,
Just to let the board know, I have not made a lot of significant changes to this since we last met. I think the primary thing that we wanted to do tonight is to have John go through the Community Viz application and some of the analysis we can do using that tool. What I have done is on page 3, there were comments relative to the general paragraph under general standards. The part that you see off to the right in green that says deleted is the language that was suggested to be deleted. I've done that. The other significant change was moving the TDM and lead requirements from the conditional use permit criteria. What I've done with this is created a new section under the general requirements that basically states the same thing, that you'd need to meet one of 2 of those requirements for all development regardless of a conditional use permit. However, we've added a section that would be a waiver for those requirements that basically states the planning board may, with sufficient justification presented, waive the requirements of section 253251, where it is shown that the transportation, demand management, or sustainable site and building design standards impose an unreasonable burden upon development of property within the FI district. So it gets us to I think the goal that the board and I think everybody is looking at in getting some transportation demand management and or environmental building standards put together in this, but also allows for the board in those circumstances where it can be demonstrated that it's a burden on development of the property to be able to waive that without having that be a strict requirement. The only other thing that happens by that is that in the conditional use permit criteria, we basically now have that removed, and we just have the 5 conditional use permit criteria that were from the original draft back from several months ago. I am still working on one of the other big items that still needs to be addressed is the signage issue related to the off-premise signage that was discussed last month. I'm still working on developing some mechanisms to make that take place. But before I got too deep into further changes into the ordinance, we wanted John to come in and show you what we're able to do with Community Viz. So I'm going to unplug my laptop and let John get in here with his. So bear with us for a second here. Before I do that, any questions on what's been
any
done?
questions of the board? Okay.
Just means he's worn us down sufficiently.
All right.
I've seen it before. I've seen it many times.
Can I just add one comment?
Yep.
Tim, is it possible when you've put out the annotated version with all of the change tracking?
Yep.
It's hell on wheels to read through it. Is it possible to also get a copy with the change track turned off so it's as it is
I
now?
can do that, yes.
A lot easier to read.
Okay. Good suggestions.
Bear with us for a second while we get this restarted here.
It's good to see the changes, but it'd be good to see it as final.
You got it?
Yeah.
And it just went.
Where are we at right now with the F5 zone in that whole discussion?
We're still making, I mean, that's what Tim was just highlighting, is the changes that were made, taking into consideration the letters that we received from Attorney Hollis and Attorney Lazos, and input from John Michaels as well, and trying to, get to a point where we feel comfortable and present the whole thing to you.
We're gonna have another public hearing then at
Yeah.
at some point in
Eventually
time?
we'll
Do you have any
get-
feel for when it'll happen, or?
Okay, John has something. You want to come to the mic? Or you can sit right down there, you know?
Yep. While he's getting rigged up.
Okay.
I did get the latest version, and those things are in, and they're fine. But I caught something else I didn't catch before, which in order to do a conditional use permit, there are some criteria, and I started thinking through how it worked. And in order to get a conditional use, any of them, like going from 200,000 above on something, not a restaurant, but, you have some categories that have, under 50,000 or over 100,000, you need a conditional use. To get into that category, the language says, one of the criteria, compliance with the standard required in the FI zone would result in a design that is not in the best interest of the town of Londonderry as expressed in the objectives and characteristics. So basically, you have to prove that a 50,000 building would not meet the criteria. Before you can go over 50, you have to prove a 50 could not meet your existing criteria. And I think it's a burden you can never meet. Because, I could build a 50,000-foot warehouse, and it meets the criteria. I have a green lot, I have, transportation management and so forth. But I have a business, and I want to build it 70,000. I can't build 70,000 unless I prove that a 50,000 can't meet the criteria. So I think the standard in here can never be met the way I read it, as,
Okay,
yeah.
Andre?
Actually, well, our intent was, if you look at the objectives and characteristics section, it refers back to the master plan and the design charrette. And the purpose behind that is that we have a particular layout, and that layout is, of the roadway network is there to maximize the use of that property. Now, if we have a use that comes in that is of a size that would block that intent, then the board have the authority to look at that and say, hold on a minute, boy, if we allow this, this is all we're getting out of this, because a roadway network cannot happen, can be able to be established. Water sewer lines cannot be extended because this building is situated in such a way and is of such a size and magnitude that it's going to prevent the other 300 acres from being developed.
Oh, I have no problem with that. I don't, we can do it another time, but I think
I
one
think
paragraph
there's a
that has
little
to
bit
be
of- I
fine-tuned.
think there's a little wordsmithing, because the remainder of that says is that, the alternative design better achieves the objectives and characteristics of the
Yeah, and
district.
the word, and the same thing in the last paragraph, there's something that says, you have to prove that whatever you're doing, the conditional use permit does not impact the general health, safety, and welfare, and that doesn't say impact favorably, unfavorably, but I think that just has to be a
That's
little
couple-
wordsmithing in the.
So can we, what Andre said, can we put that somewhere in there? So that when someone's reading this thing in Wisconsin, they actually understand it?
Yeah, very good point.
I mean, your explanation was correct,
Yeah.
but, if I'm some guy sitting in, in, Grand Rapids, Michigan, I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
'Cause I didn't talk
we
to
can
you.
see, yeah, we can see what we can do. We
Well,
didn't want to quit.
I'll help.
You can stay down here, John. Don't take over.
Yeah, I'll help.
And John, you might as well just stay there, because you're the only one here, and you're here for both issues, so.
No, I'll gladly go and help. That's the goal we want. That's the language that's what we want.
Yeah, exactly what you said is what we need.
We got it on tape.
Got it?
Pull it off the minutes.
Watch the CD tomorrow. What I'll say.
It's been coming up with some good ones this week. Okay.
How are we making out there?
It's coming up.
Well, I thank you for the interlude. I appreciate it. All right.
His sister was in our class.
All right. Again, thank you for thanks for bearing with me. Wanted to give you a little bit of a GIS demo this evening. This is based on a program called Community Viz that the town owns. We picked it up about 2 years ago. At this point, we're starting to expand the GIS into a little bit of land use modeling. And I'll give you a demonstration of what we have in mind. This idea, this land use model, this Community Viz model came about, the idea came to us a couple of months ago during some of the early flexible industrial district meetings, and there were a lot of questions about what uses and what impacts those uses would have in the industrial area. So I presented to Andre that now's probably the time to move ahead with Community Viz. And what we're able to do is model out potential developments inside this development area by adding in businesses, adding in a square foot assigned to those businesses, and then using the computer and the GIS to calculate some of the variables that would be developed by that business, such as the number of employees, the total assessment, the number of trips that would be generated, and total space that's allowed. The GIS, all of the formulas that are involved in this are dynamic, So it operates by simply dragging and dropping dots onto the screen. Those dots represent